I used to think the worst kind of betrayal came from strangers. But I was wrong. It comes from the people you trust the most, the ones whose touch once felt safe, whose words once brought comfort. That night started like any other. The house was quiet, the kids were asleep upstairs, and I was curled up on the couch, trying to fight off the heaviness in my chest. Life had been stressful lately, work, bills, and the growing distance between me and Eric, my husband of 9 years. We weren't fighting exactly, but something was off. He'd been different. Colder. Distracted. And when he finally did reach for me, when his hands brushed my shoulders to offer a so-called comforting massage, something in me froze. It wasn't the way he touched me, it was the way he didn't look at me. His eyes seemed elsewhere. Distant. Like his body was in the room, but his mind had taken a flight to another life entirely. I tried to ignore it, to remind myself that we were just tired adults struggling through a rough patch. That this was normal. That couples drift sometimes, but love anchors them back. But love shouldn't feel like a guessing game. It shouldn't leave you wondering if the person lying next to you is emotionally somewhere else. Eric's hands used to calm me. I remember the early days, him gently rubbing my back when I had a migraine, or holding me in the middle of the night after a bad dream. But that night, his touch felt robotic. There was a stiffness in his fingers, like he was performing a duty he wasn't mentally part of. My gut twisted, and I had to bite my lip to stop myself from saying something I wasn't ready to face the answer to. I looked at him, hoping to catch even a flicker of the man I married. But all I saw was a blank stare at the TV screen. No affection. No warmth. Just distance. It's terrifying how silence can speak louder than words, how a touch meant to soothe can suddenly feel like a stranger's hand. I wanted to ask him outright, to just rip the bandage off. But instead, I sat there in silence, pretending everything was okay. Pretending his hand still made me feel loved. The tension grew like a storm cloud that refuses to break. I kept telling myself it was stress, or work, or just a rough week. But deep down, something in me already knew. When a man's touch starts to feel foreign, when his warmth turns cold, something is wrong. And sometimes, your heart recognizes the truth long before your mind is ready to accept it. That night, I didn't sleep. I waited. I watched. And the very next morning, I saw something that changed everything. Something that proved my instincts had been right all along. The next morning, I woke up before Eric. His side of the bed was warm, but he lay there motionless, his back turned to me. It felt like a metaphor, present but unreachable. I went downstairs quietly, still thinking about the night before. That tension in his hands, it hadn't gone away. It lingered in my chest like a weight I couldn't shake off. I made coffee and sat by the window, watching the street come to life. People walking dogs, cars pulling out of driveways, kids riding bikes. Everything seemed normal out there, but inside our home, something was slowly falling apart. I kept thinking about all the small changes, how he'd started staying late at work more often, how his phone was suddenly always face down, and how he barely made eye contact anymore. It's easy to brush those things off when you don't want to believe the worst. But when you start noticing them all at once, they form a pattern that's hard to ignore. Later that morning, he came down, kissed me on the forehead like everything was fine, grabbed his keys, and said he had a meeting. I wanted to ask him where the meeting was. Who it was with. But I stopped myself. I didn't want to seem paranoid. I told myself I was just overthinking it, again. But when he walked out the door, he didn't look back. That's when I noticed something. His laptop was still on the dining table, half open. Eric was the kind of man who never left his devices unattended, not without locking them first. Something about that felt off. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady as I walked over. I hesitated. Was I really about to look through his things? That wasn't me. But the fear of not knowing was eating me alive. I told myself I'd just glance. Just one peek. Just to put my mind at ease. The screen was open to an email. The subject line alone made my stomach drop. It wasn't work-related. And the name, it wasn't familiar. Not a coworker. Not a friend. My eyes scanned the message, but just as I started to read, the screen blinked and locked. I stood there frozen. That 1 second, that glimpse, was enough to know something wasn't right. And just like that, my world began to tilt. I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. Whatever was happening behind my back, it wasn't in my head. It was real. I couldn't stop thinking about that email. The name at the top, Melissa, kept circling in my mind like a warning siren I couldn't shut off. Who was she? Why was he emailing her from his personal account? And why did the subject line sound so personal? I didn't even get the full sentence, but the way it was worded, it felt intimate. It didn't feel like work. It didn't feel innocent. For the rest of the day, I moved through the house like a ghost. I folded laundry I couldn't remember washing. I reheated coffee 3 times and never drank it. I kept watching the door, waiting for him to come back so I could study his face, every blink, every word, every breath. I needed answers, but I didn't know how to ask. What would I even say? Hey, I accidentally saw part of an email you never meant me to see? It wasn't just about that one message. It was about everything. The way he avoided my eyes. The way he flinched when I touched his phone. The way his comfort felt like obligation, not affection. As the hours passed, my mind started spinning out in all directions. I thought about our neighbor, Jenna, who always seemed a little too friendly when Eric was around. Was it her? Then I remembered his old college friend who'd messaged him on Facebook a few months back. Could it be her? And then came the worst thought, what if it wasn't just one person? What if he'd been emotionally checked out for a long time and I just didn't want to see it? Later that evening, I called my sister, Rachel. I didn't tell her everything, just that something felt wrong and I didn't know what to do. She paused for a long time, then asked, has this been going on for a while? The distance? I said yes. And then she said something I couldn't shake, sometimes the truth doesn't hide, it just waits for us to stop pretending it's not there. That night, I couldn't sleep again. Eric came home late. Said it was work. I nodded and smiled like everything was fine, like I didn't feel the walls of our marriage closing in on me. But inside, I was unraveling. Because I had a feeling that the truth, whatever it was about to surface. And once it did, nothing would be the same. The days that followed felt like walking through a storm with no umbrella, each moment soaked in doubt, every glance from Eric feeling like a drop too heavy to carry. I kept trying to act normal, trying to go through the motions of daily life without breaking. But something had shifted, and even the smallest things started to feel like clues. He was showering right after coming home now. He stopped leaving his phone on the counter. He even changed his passcode. That alone felt like a slap. We used to share everything, so when did he start needing secrets? One night, while he was in the shower, I picked up his phone. It didn't unlock, of course. But I stared at it, just holding it in my hand, like maybe it would give me something, a vibration, a message, a missed call. Nothing. It was like it knew it didn't belong to me anymore. The tension between us was growing heavier. We barely spoke at dinner. The silence stretched longer every evening. Even the kids had started to notice. Our daughter asked if Daddy was mad. I smiled and told her everything was fine. But my voice cracked, and I think she heard it. That broke me in a way I didn't expect. Then came Friday. He said he had a conference out of town. Just overnight. He packed fast, avoided my eyes, and kissed my cheek like someone checking a box. My heart pounded as he walked out the door. I knew in my gut, he wasn't going to any conference. So I made a decision. I needed to know the truth. I couldn't keep suffocating in my own house, pretending not to see the cracks forming beneath our life. I called Rachel again. She didn't even hesitate. "Follow him," she said. "If you can't ask him, then find out. You deserve to know." So that's exactly what I planned to do. I called in sick from work the next morning. Packed a small bag, just in case. I felt like a stranger to myself, nervous, shaky, heart racing with every breath. But deep down, something else had taken over. Not anger. Not fear. Just the need for truth. Real truth. Because I was done second-guessing. Done pretending. And when I pulled up outside that hotel and saw what I saw, my entire world started to tilt. I sat in my car, parked a few spaces away from the hotel entrance, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I kept telling myself I was imagining things, that maybe I was just being paranoid, letting my emotions twist everything out of proportion. But then I saw him. Eric stepped out of the lobby, laughing, not alone. Walking beside him was a woman in a red coat. She touched his arm gently as they stood by the valet, waiting for a car. It wasn't just casual. It wasn't business. There was something between them, too comfortable, too familiar. I ducked down in my seat, heart pounding like it was trying to break through my ribs. My throat felt tight, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. That woman, she wasn't anyone I recognized. Younger, maybe mid-30s. Long hair, polished, confident. She smiled at him the way I used to. And he looked back at her like she was the only person in the world. I expected to feel rage or heartbreak. But instead, I felt numb. Watching them drive away together felt like watching a movie I couldn't pause. I sat there in silence for nearly an hour before I finally started my car. I didn't follow them. I couldn't. Something inside me was already breaking apart. But just as I was about to leave, something strange happened. A knock at my window. I jumped. It was a woman, middle-aged, maybe late 40s, with a badge clipped to her coat. She looked serious, cautious. "Are you following someone too?" she asked softly, glancing toward the hotel. I was too stunned to respond at first. Then she added, "You're not the only one. That man you're watching, he's not who he says he is." Her words felt like ice water down my spine. "What do you mean?" I asked, barely able to get the words out. She hesitated, then looked over her shoulder. "I think we need to talk somewhere private." We ended up at a coffee shop 2 blocks away. She introduced herself as Helen. She said she'd been seeing Eric for nearly 4 months, only his name wasn't Eric. He went by Aaron with her. Claimed he was divorced, starting over, no baggage. She had no idea he was married. No idea I existed. I sat there shaking, trying to process what she was telling me. Every part of my life suddenly felt like a lie. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, she pulled out her phone, scrolled to a message thread, and showed me something that nearly made me drop my cup. There were photos. Of him. In our home. On our couch. Holding our daughter. He had sent them to her weeks ago. And the message below? "One day this will all be ours." I looked at her in disbelief. She looked just as shattered. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about infidelity anymore. This was something else. Something deeper. Something far more dangerous. I stared at Helen's phone, my mind spinning. Everything I thought I knew about my life, about Eric, about our marriage, it all collapsed in that moment. He hadn't just lied to me. He had created a second identity. A second life. And the way he so casually sent her pictures from our home, our living room, holding our daughter like it was no big deal, it chilled me. He wasn't just cheating. He was blending 2 lives, overlapping them, playing house with both of us like it was some kind of game. And we were just the pieces. Helen looked as lost as I felt. Her eyes welled up, but she didn't cry. I had no idea, she whispered. I would have never. Her voice cracked, and I reached across the table to hold her hand. Two strangers brought together by one man's deception. Neither of us deserved this. We didn't ask for this. I knew I couldn't go home without confronting him. I needed answers. So I asked Helen to send me those messages. I told her I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I couldn't let this go. She nodded. If you need anything, I'll be there. That night, I waited. Eric came home late again. Claimed traffic. Claimed exhaustion. I sat there in the kitchen, phone in my hand, trying to stay calm. How was the conference? I asked, my voice quiet. He didn't even blink. Fine. Long day. I slid the phone across the table. His eyes dropped to the screen. He froze. I watched his face, watched the color drain, watched the muscles in his jaw tighten, watched him realize it was over. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Just silence. That was louder than anything he could have said. Who is Melissa? I asked, already knowing. Or should I say Helen? Or whoever else you're lying to? He sat down slowly, as if the weight of his lies was finally catching up to him. It's not what you think, he began. But I cut him off. Don't insult me any more than you already have. He finally confessed. Not just about Helen. There were others. Different names. Different stories. He said it started as a way to escape. He felt stuck. Bored. Invisible. So he became someone else, again and again. I felt sick. Our marriage, our family, it had all been part of a story he told when it suited him. But just when I thought the worst was behind me, my phone buzzed. It was a new message. From an unknown number. It was a picture. Eric. With another woman. Not Helen. Not me. The timestamp? Yesterday. And below it, the message, you're not the only one watching. My heart dropped. Because this wasn't just betrayal anymore. Someone else was out there. And they knew everything. I stared at the photo on my phone, my heart racing. My hands were trembling, but I forced myself to stay calm. Eric was still sitting across the table, stunned, not yet knowing what I had just seen. I looked up at him, this man I once trusted with everything, trying to understand who he really was. But the truth was, I didn't know him at all. And now, it wasn't just about betrayal. It was about danger. About secrets stacked so high they were starting to collapse. I stood up, phone in hand, and walked away. I'm done, I said quietly. You can explain all you want, but nothing you say can fix this. He didn't chase after me. Maybe deep down, he knew this moment would come. Maybe he had run out of stories. The next morning, I met Helen again, and together we went to the police. Not because we wanted revenge, but because that last message, you're not the only one watching, was a warning neither of us could ignore. We gave them everything. The messages, the photos, the names he used. Turns out, Eric, or Aaron, or whoever he was to these women, had been living multiple lives across different cities for over 2 years. Not criminal exactly, but deceptive enough to warrant serious questions. Eventually, we found out the message was sent by another woman. Someone who had been involved with Eric a year ago and had been quietly collecting proof ever since. She had seen the lies, the patterns, and decided to warn the rest of us when she saw the signs repeating. She wasn't bitter. She was protective, trying to make sure no one else got hurt. As for me, I filed for separation and focused on protecting my children. They didn't need to know the messy details. Just that their mom was strong enough to walk away from someone who didn't value honesty or family. Helen and I stayed in touch. We weren't just two women scorned, we were two women who took back control of our stories. That mattered more than the betrayal. I look back now and realize that sometimes the people closest to you were the best masks. But truth has a way of revealing itself. No matter how long it hides, it finds light. If you're watching this and your gut is telling you something isn't right, listen to it. Don't silence it. Don't doubt it. Whether it's infidelity, emotional distance, or unexplained lies, you deserve clarity. You deserve peace. This wasn't the life I planned. But in the end, it gave me strength I didn't know I had. And sometimes, walking away from the lie is the first step toward finding something real. Because love should never come with confusion. And comfort should never feel like tension. 19.